Hello. So this will be a reading of Economics in One Lesson by Henry Hazlitt. I'm not sure how much I will read, but I will just read until I get bored of reading. Okay. Chapter 1. The Lesson. Economics is thwarted by more fallacies than any other study known to man. This is no accident. The inherent difficulties of the subject would be great enough in any case, but they are multiplied 1,000-fold by a factor that is insignificant in, say, physics, mathematics, or medicine. The special
You have unlocked the shotgun, Mark 1.
While every group has certain economic interests, identical with those of all groups, every group has also, as we shall see, interests antagonistic to those of all other groups. While certain public policies would in the long run benefit everybody, other policies would benefit one group only at the expense of all other groups. The group that would benefit by such policies, having such a direct interest in them, will argue for them, plausibly and persistently. It will hire the best viable minds to devote their whole time to presenting its case, and it will finally either convince the general public that its case is sound, or so
You have unlocked
befuddle
the shotgun, Mark
that
1.
clear thinking on the subject becomes next to impossible. In addition to these endless pleadings of self-interest, there's a second main factor that spawns new economic fallacies. This is the persistent tendency of men to see only the
You have unlocked
effects
smoke grenades.
of a given policy, or its effects only on a special group, and to neglect to inquire what the long-term effects of that policy will be, not only on that special group, but on all groups. It is the fallacy of overlooking secondary
You have unlocked
consequences.
smoke grenades.
In this lies the whole difference between good economics and bad. The bad economist sees only what immediately strikes the eye. The good economist also looks beyond. The bad economist sees only the direct consequences of a proposed course. The good economist looks also at the longer and indirect consequences. The bad economist sees only what the effect of a given policy has been or will be on one particular group. The good economist inquires also what the effect of the policy will be on all groups. The distinction may seem obvious. The precaution of looking for all the consequences of a given policy to everyone may seem elementary. Doesn't everybody know in his personal life that there are all sorts of indulgences delightful at the moment but disastrous in the end? Doesn't every little boy know that if he eats enough candy he will get sick? Doesn't the fellow who gets drunk know that he will wake up the next morning with a ghastly stomach and a horrible head?
Warning.
Doesn't the dipsomaniac know that he is ruining his liver and shortening his life? Doesn't the Don Juan know that he is letting himself in for every sort of risk, from blackmail to disease? Finally, to bring it to the economic though, still personal all round, do not the idler and the spendthrift know, even in the midst of their glorious fling, that they are heading for a future of debt and poverty? Yet when we enter the field of public economics, these elementary truths are ignored. There are men regarded today as brilliant economists who deprecate saving and recommend squandering on a national scale as the way of economic salvation. And when anyone points to what the consequences of these policies will be in the long run, they reply flippantly, as might the prodigal son of a warning father, quote, in the long run, we are all dead, unquote. And such shallow wisecracks pass as devastating evidence and the ripest wisdom. But the tragedy is that, on the contrary, we are already suffering the long-run consequences of the policies of the remote or recent past. Today is already the tomorrow which the bad economists yesterday urged us to ignore. The long-run consequences of some economic policies may become evident in a few months. Others may not become evident for several years. Still others may not become evident for decades. But in every case, those long-run consequences are contained in the policy as surely as the hen was in the egg, the flower and the seed. From this aspect, therefore, the whole of economics can be reduced to a single lesson, and that lesson can be reduced to a single sentence. The art of economics consists in looking not merely at the immediate, but at the longer effects of any act of policy. It consists in tracing the consequences of that policy not merely for one group, but for all groups. 9/10 of the economic policies that are working such dreadful harm in the world today are the result of ignoring this lesson. Those policies will stem from one of two central policies, or both, that of looking only at the immediate consequences of an act or proposal, and that of looking at the consequences only for a particular group to the neglect of other groups. It is true, of course, that the opposite error is possible. In considering a policy, we ought not to concentrate only on its long-run results to the community as a whole. This is the error often made by the classical. It resulted in a certain callousness toward the fate of groups that were immediately hurt by policies or developments which proved to be beneficial on net balance and in the long run. But comparatively, few people today make this error, and those few consist mainly of professional economists. The most frequent fallacy by far today, the fallacy that emerges again and again in nearly every conversation that touches on economic affairs, the error of 1,000 political speeches, the central sophism of the new economics, is to concentrate on the short-run effects of policies on special groups and to ignore or belittle the long-run effects on the community as a whole. The new economists flatter themselves that this is a great, almost a revolutionary advance over the methods of the classical or orthodox economists, because the former take into consideration long-run effects, which the latter often ignore. But in themselves ignoring or slighting the long-run effects, they are making the far more serious error. They overlook the woods and their precise and minute examination of particular trees. Their methods and conclusions are often profoundly reactionary. They are sometimes surprised to find themselves in accord with 17th century mercantilism. They fall, in fact, into all the ancient errors, or would if they were not so inconsistent, that the classical economists we had hoped had once and for all got rid of. It is often sadly remarked that the bad economists present their errors to the public better than the good economists present their truths. It is often complained that demagogues can be more plausible in putting forward economic nonsense from the platform than the honest men who try to show with honesty. But the basic reason for this ought not to be mysterious. The reason is that the demagogues and bad economists are presenting half-truths. They are speaking only of the immediate effect of a proposed policy or its effect upon a single group. As far as they go, they may often be right. In these cases, the answers consist in showing that the proposed policy would also have long-lasting or that it could benefit one group only at the expense of all other groups. The answer consists in supplementing and correcting the half truth with the other half. But to consider all the chief effects of a proposed course on everybody often requires a long, complicated, and dull chain of reasoning. Most of the audience finds this chain of reasoning difficult to follow, and soon becomes bored, and inattentive. The economists rationalize this intellectual capability and laziness by assuring the audience that it need not even attempt to follow reason or judge it on its merits, because it is only a class of or laissez-faire, or capitalistic evidence, or whatever other system of use they have to strike on as effective. We have stated the nature of the lesson and of the values of standing its way in abstract terms, but the lesson will not be driven home. The process will continue to go unrecognized, unless both are illustrated by examples. Through these examples we can move from the most elementary problems in economics to the most complex and difficult. Through them we can learn to detect and avoid first the crudest and most palpable balances, finally some of the most sophisticated and elusive. To that task we should now proceed. Part 2. Chapter 2. Let us begin with the simplest illustrated concept. Let us stimulate in Garcia choose a broken a young Negro said, a brick through the window of a baker's shop. The shopkeeper runs out furious, but the boy is gone. A crowd gathers and begins to stare with quiet satisfaction at the gaping hole in the window, shattered glass over the bread and pie. After a while, the crowd feels the need for a philosophical reflection, and several of its members are almost certain to remind each other or the baker that, after all, the misfortune has its rights. They will make business with some glazier. As they begin to think of this, they elaborate upon it. How much does a new plate glass window cost? $250? That would be quite a sum. After all, if windows were never broken, what would happen to the glass windows? Then of course, the thing was ended. The glazier will have $250 more spent with other merchants. These in turn have $250 more spent with still other merchants, and so infinitely. The smashed window will go on divided among employees, the ever-widening circle. The logical conclusion from all of this would be, the crowd draw, that the little hoodlum who threw the brick, far from being a public menace, was a public benefactor. Now let us take another look. The crowd is at least right in its first conclusion. This little act of vandalism will, in the first instance, bring more business for some glazier. The glazier will be no more apt to learn of policemen than an undertaker to learn of death. The shopkeeper will be out of because he has had to replace the window, he will have to go without a suit or some other equivalent tools like that. Instead of having a window to he now has merely a window, whereas he was planning to buy the suit for a moon instead of having got the window to suit. He is content with the window and no suit. If we think of him as a harder, no new employment has been added. precisely because he will not damage the sea. They will see the new window in the next day or two. They will never see the extra suit precisely because it will never be made. They see only what is immediately available. Chapter 3. The Blessings of Destruction. So we have finished with the broken window, an elementary fallacy. Anybody, one would think, would be able to avoid it after a few moments of thought. Yet, the broken window fallacy, as Hundred described it, is the most consistent in the history of the world. It is your action it is solemnly reaffirmed every day by great captains of industry, by chambers of commerce, by labor union leaders, by editorial writers, and radio television, by learned statisticians using the most refined techniques, by professors of economics in our best universities. In their various ways, they violate the advantages of destruction. While some of them would disdain to say that there are benefits in small acts of destruction, they see almost endless benefits in enormous acts of destruction. They tell us how much better off economically we all are in war. They see no reason which supplies the work of the sea, and they see a world made prosperous by an enormously accumulated or backed up demand. In Europe after World War II, they joyously counted the houses, the whole cities that had been leveled to the ground and that had to be replaced. In America, they counted the houses that could not be built during the war, the nylon stockings that could not be supplied, the worn-out automobiles and tires, the obsolete radios and refrigerators. They brought together things and uploaders. It was merely our old friends, the broken window phones, clothing. Grown fat and this time it was supported by the whole world and related policies that confused the need of demand. The more war destroys, the more it compulses. The greater is the personal need. But need is not demand. Effective economic demand requires not merely need, but corresponding purchasing power. The needs of India today are incomparably greater than the needs of America, but its purchasing power and therefore the business that it can stimulate are incomparably smaller. But if we get past this point, there is a chance for another fashion and broken window lights to the gravity. They think of purchasing merely in terms of money. Now money can be run off by the printing press. As this is being written, in fact, printing money is the world's biggest industry, as the product is measured in monetary terms. But the more money is turned out in this way, the more the value of any given unit of money falls. This falling value can be measured in rising prices of commodities. But as most people are so firmly in the habit of thinking of their wealth and income in terms of money, they consider themselves better off as these monetary totals rise, in spite of the fact that in terms of things they may have less and higher. Most of the good economic results which people at the time attributed to World War II were really owing to wartime inflation. They could have been and were produced just as well by an equivalent piece of inflation. We shall come back to this money later. Now there is a half-truth in the backed up ground fallacy, just as there was in the broken window fallacy. The broken window did make more business for ability to produce automobile radios and refrigerators during the war did bring about a cumulative post-war need for those particular products. To most people, this seemed like an increase in total demand, as it partly was in terms of those purchases. But what mainly took place was a diversion of demand into these particular products from others. The people of Europe built more new houses than otherwise because they had to. But when they built more houses, they had just that much less manpower and productive capacity left over for everything else. When they bought houses, they had just that much less purchasing power for something else. Wherever business was increased in one direction, it was, except insofar as productive energies were stimulated by a sense of wanton urgency, correspondingly reduced in another. The war, in short, changed the post-war direction of effort. It changed the balance of industry. It changed the structure of industry. Since World War II ended in Europe, there has been rapid and even spectacular economic growth, both in countries that were ravaged by war and those that were not. Some of the countries in which there was the greatest destruction, such as Germany, resulted in rapidly growing, such as France, which there was less. In part, this was because these German followers found their economic growth. In part, it was because the desperate need to get active in the housing and stimulated increased efforts. But this does not mean that property destruction is an advantage to the person whose property has been destroyed. No man burns down his own house on the theory that the need to rebuild it will stimulate his energies. After a war, there is normally a stimulation of energies for a time. At the beginning of the famous third chapter of the history of England, pointed out that no ordinary misfortune, no ordinary misgovernment will do so much to make a nation wretched as the constant progress of physical knowledge and the constant effort of every man to better himself will do to make a nation prosperous. It has often been found that profuse expenditure, heavy taxation, absurd commercial restrictions, corrupt tribunals, disastrous wars, seditions, persecutions, conflagrations, inundations have not been able to destroy capital so fast as the exertions of resources have been able to create it. No man would want to have his own property destroyed either in war or in peace. What is harmful or disastrous to an individual must be equally harmful or disastrous to the collection of individuals that make up a nation. Many of the most frequent fallacies in economic reasoning come from propensity, especially modern today, to think in terms of an abstraction, the collectivity, the nation, and to forget or ignore the individuals who make it up and give it meaning. No one could think that the destruction of war was an economic advantage by thinking first of all of the people whose property was destroyed. Those who think that the destruction of war increases total demand forget that demand and supply are merely two sides of the same coin. They are the same thing looked at from different directions. Supply creates demand because at bottom it is demand. The supply of the thing they make is all that people have. In fact, to offer in exchange for the things they want. In this sense, farmers' supply of wheat constitutes their demand for automobiles and other goods. All this is inherent in the modern division of labor and in an exchange economy. This fundamental fact, it is true, is obscured for most people, including some of the reputedly brilliant economists.
You have unlocked smoke
Through such
grenade.
complications as wage payments and the indirect form in which virtually all modern exchanges are made through the medium of money, John Stuart Mill and other classical writers, though they sometimes failed to take sufficient account of complex consequences resulting from the use of money, at least saw through the monetary veil to the underlying realities. To that extent, they were in advance of many of their present-day critics, who are befuddled by money rather than instructed by it. Mere inflation, that is, the mere issuance of more money with the consequence of higher wages and prices, may look like the creation of more demand, but in terms of the actual production and exchange of real things, it is not. It should be obvious that real buying power is wiped out to the same extent as productive power is wiped out. We should not let ourselves be deceived or confused on this point by the effects of monetary inflation and raising prices or national income in monetary terms. It is sometimes said that the Germans or the Japanese had a post-war advantage over the Americans because their old plants having been destroyed completely by bombs during the war, they could replace them with the most modern plants and equipment and thus produce more efficiently and at lower cost than the Americans with their older and half obsolete plants and equipment. But if this were really a clear net advantage, Americans could easily offset it by immediately wrecking their old plants, junking all the old equipment. In fact, all manufacturers in all countries could scrap all their old plants and equipment every year and erect new plants and install new equipment. The simple truth is that there is an optimum rate of replacement, a best time for replacement. It would be an advantage for a manufacturer to have his factory and equipment destroyed by bombs only if the time had arrived when, through deterioration and obsolescence, his plants and equipment had already acquired a null or a negative value, and the bombs fell just when he should have called in a wrecking crew or ordered new equipment anyway. It is true that previous deprecation and obsolescence, if not adequately reflected in his books, may make the destruction of his property less of a disaster on net balance than it seems. It is also true that the existence of new plants and equipment speeds up the obsolescence of older plants and equipment. If the owners of the older plant and equipment try to keep using it longer than the period for which it would maximize their profit, then the manufacturers whose plants and equipment were destroyed, if we assume that they had both the will and capital to will reap a comparative advantage, or, to speak more accurately, will reduce their comparative loss. We are brought in brief to the conclusion that it is never an advantage to have one's plants destroyed by shells or bombs, unless those plants have already become valueless or acquired a negative value by depreciation or obsolescence. In all this discussion, moreover, we have so far omitted a central consideration. Plants and equipment cannot be replaced by an individual or a socialist government unless he or it has acquired or can acquire the savings, the capital accumulation to make the replacement. But war destroys accumulated capital. There may be, it is true, offsetting factors. Technological discoveries and advances during war may, for example, increase individual or national productivity at this point or that, and there may eventually be a net increase in overall productivity. Post-war demand will never reproduce the precise pattern of pre-war demand. But such complications should not divert us from recognizing the basic truth that the wanton destruction of anything of real value is always a net loss, a misfortune, or a disaster, and whatever the offsetting considerations in a particular instance can never be on net balance a boon or a blessing. Chapter 4. Public works mean taxes. There is no more persistent and influential faith in the world today than the faith in government spending. Everywhere government spending is presented as a panacea for all our economic ills. Is private industry partially stagnant? We can fix it all by government spending. If there is unemployment, that is obviously due to insufficient private purchasing power. The remedy is just as obvious. All that is necessary is for the government to spend enough to make up the deficiency. An enormous literature is based on this fallacy, and as so often happens with doctrines of the sort, it has become part of an intricate network of fallacies that mutually support each other. We cannot explore that whole network at this point. We shall return to other branches of it later. But we can examine here the mother fallacy that has given birth to this progeny, the main stem of the network. Everything we get outside of the free gifts of nature must in some way be paid for. The world is full of so-called economists who in turn are full of schemes for getting something for nothing. They tell us that the government can spend and spend without taxing at all, that it can continue to pile up debt without ever paying it off, because we owe it to ourselves. We shall return to such extraordinary doctrines at a later point. Here I am afraid we shall have to be dogmatic and point out that such pleasant dreams of the past have always been shattered by national insolvency or runaway inflation. Here we shall have to say simply that all government expenditures must eventually be paid out of the proceeds of taxation, that inflation itself is merely a form, and a particularly vicious form, of taxation. Having put aside the latter consideration, the network of fallacies which rest on chronic government borrowing and inflation, we shall take it for granted throughout the present chapter that either immediately or ultimately every dollar of government spending must be raised through a dollar of taxation. Once we look at the matter in this way, the supposed miracles of government spending will appear in another light. A certain amount of public spending is necessary to perform essential government functions. A certain amount of public works of streets and roads and bridges and tunnels of armories and navy yards, of buildings to house legislatures, police and fire departments is necessary to supply the essential public services. But with such public works, necessary for their own sake and defended on the ground alone, I am not here concerned. I am here concerned with public works considered as a means of providing employment, of adding wealth to the community that it would not otherwise have had. A bridge is built. If it is built to meet an insistent public demand, if it solves a traffic problem or a transportation problem, otherwise insoluble, if, in short, it is even more unnecessary to the taxpayers collectively than the things for which they would have individually spent their money if it had not been taxed away from them, there can be no objection. But a bridge built primarily to provide employment is a different kind of bridge. When providing employment becomes the end, need becomes a subordinate consideration. Projects have to be invented. Instead of thinking only of where bridges must be built, the government spenders begin to ask themselves where bridges can be built. Can they think of plausible reasons why an additional bridge should connect Eastern and Western? It soon becomes absolutely essential. Those who doubt the necessity are dismissed as obstructionists and reactionaries. Two arguments are put forward for the bridge, one of which is mainly heard before it is built, the other of which is mainly heard after it has been completed. The first argument is that it will provide employment. It will provide, say, 500 jobs for a year. The implication is that these are jobs that would not otherwise have come into existence. This is what is immediately seen, but if we have trained ourselves to look beyond the immediate and secondary consequences, and beyond those who are directly benefited by a government project to others who are indirectly affected, a different picture presents itself. It is true that a particular group of bridge workers may receive more employment than otherwise, but the bridge has to be paid for out of taxes. For every dollar that is spent on the bridge, a dollar will be taken away from taxpayers. If the bridge costs $10 million to the taxpayers will lose $10 million. They will have that much taken away from them, which they would otherwise have spent on the things they needed most. Therefore, for every public job created by the bridge project, a private job has been destroyed somewhere else. We can see the men employed on the bridge. We can watch them at work. The employment argument of the government spenders becomes vivid, and probably for most people convincing. But there are other things that we do not see, because alas, they have never been permitted to come into existence. They are the jobs destroyed by the $10 million taken away from the taxpayer. All that has happened, at best, is that there has been a diversion of jobs because of the project. More bridge builders, fewer automobile workers, television technicians, clothing workers, and farmers. But then we come to the second argument. The bridge exists. It is, let us suppose, a beautiful and not an ugly bridge. It has come into being through the magic of government spending. Where would it have been if the obstructionists and the reactionaries had got in their way? There would have been no bridge. The country would have been just that much poorer. Here again, the government spending have the better of the argument with all those who can see beyond the immediate range of their physical eyes. They can see the bridge, but if they have taught themselves to look for indirect as well as direct consequences, they can once more see in the eye of imagination the possibilities that have never been allowed to come into existence. They can see the unbuilt homes, the unmade cars and washing machines, the unmade dresses and coats, perhaps the ungrown and unsold foodstuffs. To see these infinite things that not many people seem to have. We can think of these non-existent objects once, perhaps, but we cannot keep them before our minds as we can the bridge that we pass every working day. What has happened is merely that one thing has been created instead of others. The same reasoning applies, of course, to every other form of public work. It applies just as well. For example, to the erection of public funds of housing for people of low incomes. All that happens is that money is taken away from taxes from families of high income, perhaps a little from families of even lower income, to force them to subsidize these selected families with low incomes and enable them to live in better housing for the same rent or for lower rent than previously. I do not intend to enter here into all the pros and cons of public housing. I am concerned only to point out the error in two of the arguments most frequently put forward in favor of public housing. One is the argument that it creates wealth, the other that it creates wealth which would not otherwise have been produced. Both of these arguments are false because they overlook what it was for taxation. Taxation for public housing destroys as many jobs in other lines as it creates in housing. It also results in unbuilt private homes, in unmade washing machines and refrigerators, and the lack of innumerable other commodities and services. And none of this is answered by the sort of reply which points out, for example, that public housing does not have to be financed by a lump sum capital appropriation, but merely by annual rent subsidies. This simply means that the cost to the taxpayers is spread over many years instead of being concentrated into one. Such technicalities are irrelevant to the main point. The great psychological advantage of the public housing advocates is that men are seen at work on the houses when they are ready, and the houses are seen when they are finished. People live in them and proudly show their friends through the rooms. The jobs destroyed by the taxes for the housing are not seen, nor the goods and services that were never made. It takes a concentrated effort of thought and a new effort each time the houses and the happy people in them are seen to think of the wealth that was not created instead. Is it surprising that the champions of public housing should dismiss this if it was brought to their attention? As a world of imagination, as the objections of pure theory, while they point to the public housing that exists, as a character in Bernard Shaw's St. John implies, the turn of the theory of Pythagoras, that the earth is round and revolves around the sun. What another fool, couldn't he use his eyes? We must apply the same reasoning once more to great projects like the Tennessee Valley Authority here, because of the sheer size, the danger of optical illusion is greater than ever. Here is a mighty dam, a stupendous arc of steel and concrete, greater than anything that private capital could have built. The fetish of photographers, the heaven of socialists, the most often used symbol of the miracles of public construction. Here are mighty generators and powerhouses. Here is a whole region, it is said, lifted to a higher economic level, attracting factories and industries that could not otherwise have existed. And it is all presented in the panegyrics of its past partisans as a net economic gain without offsets. We need not go here into the merits of TVA or public projects like it, but this time we need a special effort of the imagination which few people seem to be able to make, to look at the debit side of the ledger. Taxes taken from individuals and corporations is spent in one particular section of the economy. Why should it cause surprise? Why should it be regarded as a miracle if that section becomes comparatively richer? Other sections of the country, we should remember, are then comparatively poorer. The thing's so great that private capital cannot build it, as in fact being built by private capital, the capital that was expropriated in taxes, or if the money was borrowed, that eventually must be expropriated in taxes. Again, we must make an effort of the imagination to see the private power plants, the private homes, the typewriters and television sets that were never allowed to come into existence because of the money that was taken from people all over the country to build the photogenic Norris Stand. I've deliberately chosen the most favourable examples of public spending schemes, that is, those that are most frequently and fervently urged by the government spenders and most highly regarded by the public. I have not spoken of the hundreds of boondocking projects that are invariably embarked upon the moment that main object is to, quote, give jobs, to quote,
Use the X button to release
to put people to work. For then, the usefulness of the project itself, as we've seen, inevitably becomes a subordinate consideration. Moreover, the more wasteful the work, the more costly the manpower, the better it becomes for the purpose of providing more employment. Under such circumstances, it is highly improbable that the project fall up by the bureaucrats will provide the same net addition to wealth and welfare per dollar expended as would have been provided by the taxpayers themselves if they had been individually permitted to buy or have made what they themselves wanted, instead of being forced to surrender part of their earnings to the state. Chapter 5. Taxes discourage duck. There is still further factor which makes it improbable that the wealth created by the government spending will fully compensate for the wealth destroyed by the taxes imposed to pay for that spending. It is not a simple question as so often supposed that taking something out of the nation's right-hand pocket to put it into its left-hand pocket. The government spenders tell us, for example, that if the national income is 1.1500 billion, then federal taxes of 360 billion a year would mean that only 24% of the national income is being transferred from private purposes to public purposes. This is to talk as if the country were the same sort of unit of big resources as a huge corporation, and as if all that were involved were a mere bookkeeping transaction. The government spenders forget that they are taking the money from A in order to pay it to B, or rather they know this very well, but while they dilate upon all the benefits of the process to B, and all the wonderful things he will have which he would not have had if the money had not been transferred to him, they forget the effects of the transaction on A. B is C, A is forgotten. In our modern world, there is never the same percentage of income tax levied on everyone. The great burden of income taxes is imposed on a minor percentage of the nation's income. And these income taxes have to be supplemented by taxes of other kinds. These taxes inevitably affect the actions and incentives of those from whom they are taken. When a corporation loses 100 cents of every dollar it loses, and is permitted to keep only 52 cents of every dollar it gains. When it cannot handle the loss share, its years of losses against its years of gains, its policies are affected. It does not expand its operation, or it expands only those attended with a minimum of risk. People who recognize the situation are deterred from starting new enterprises. Thus, old employers do not give more employment, or not as much more as they might have, and others decide not to become employers at all. Improved machinery and better equipped factories come into existence much more slowly than they otherwise would. The result in the long run is that consumers are prevented from getting better and cheaper products to the extent that they otherwise would, and that real wages are held down compared with what they might have been. There's a similar effect when personal incomes are taxed 50, 60 or 70%. People begin to ask themselves why they should work 6, 8 or 9 months of the entire year for the government and only 6, 4 or 3 months for themselves and their families. If they lose the whole dollar when they lose, but can only keep a fraction of it when they win, they decide that it is foolish to take risks with their capital. In addition, the capital available for risk-taking itself shrinks enormously. It is being taxed away before it can be accumulated. In brief, capital to provide new private jobs is first prevented from coming into existence, and the part that does come into existence is then discouraged from starting new enterprises. The government spenders create the very problem of unemployment that they profess to solve. A certain amount of taxes is of course indispensable to carry on essential government functions. Reasonable taxes for this purpose need not hurt production much. The kind of government services then supplied in return, which among other things safeguard production itself, more than compensate for this. But the larger the percentage of the national income taken by taxes, the greater the deterrent to private production and employment. When the total tax burden grows beyond a bearable size, the problem of devising taxes that will not discourage and disrupt production becomes insoluble.
Yes,